Hey, good morning. Patricia Murphy here. It's Saturday. This is Seattle Now. Today we're bringing you stories from our public radio newsroom colleagues. First, now that 2025's general election is wrapping up, it's time to shift attention to the midterms. Democrats at the national level are strategizing about how to win. As OPB's Eric Newman reports, one group is looking at the centrist politics of a Southwest Washington Democrat as a possible model. Here's Eric.
U.S. Representative Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez sits with a dozen residents in the clubhouse of Vista del Rio on a recent Tuesday. It's a manufactured home park in Vancouver. She's here to talk with senior citizens about affordable housing. Some in the group say they're Trump supporters, but soon they start thanking the two-term Democrat for being willing to vote on issues across party lines.
Well, I really appreciate that.
It's the only path forward.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
We gotta have 150 of you.
I mean,
that are reasonable, logical people who.
Being a moderate, blue-collar Democrat who can appeal to Republican and independent voters and win purple districts is a strategy that some national groups are hoping to copy in 2026. As a first-time politician a few years ago, Gluesenkamp-Perez won her 3rd district seat for Democrats for the first time in more than a decade. She's voted against her own party on some contentious topics and seems to relish the role.
I think that anything that moves us off the ledge of feeling like winning is defined by complete annihilation of people who disagree with you is a good thing.
Similar working-class candidates have been appearing in high-profile races around the country lately. There's a waitress raised on a dairy farm running for a House seat in Wisconsin, an Army veteran and oyster farmer running for Senate in Maine, and another Senate candidate in Iowa who's a mechanic and former Marine. All are Democrats. Before Congress, Gluesenkamp-Perez helped run an auto repair shop in Portland.
For me, it's exciting that we have candidates that, are breath of fresh air, that are people that you want to go sit down and have a beer with.
That's Dean Nielsen, a political consultant in Seattle with CN4 Partners. He says what's different this year is recruitment of Democratic candidates who work with their hands and have strong ties to their communities. One of the groups promoting Gluesenkamp-Perez is the Washington, D.C.-based Welcome PAC. Its goal is to win enough seats to take back the House of Representatives. Lauren Pope is the Super PAC's co-founder.
The vision of our organization is essentially to recalibrate Democrats to where the median voter is.
Welcome PAC's bet is that despite the increasingly polarized tone of national politics, most voters are neither extreme liberals nor extreme conservatives. The group is backing independent-minded candidates in districts President Trump won, even if those candidates sometimes frustrate progressives.
You don't necessarily always get a reward for being a depolarizer and prioritizing place-based politics and the things that your district prioritizes, but you do get electoral victories.
That pitch is appealing to some donors in Southwest Washington. Camas resident David Nirenberg is a longtime supporter of Gluesenkamp-Perez. For years, he worked for Utah Republican Mitt Romney. Nirenberg and his wife Patricia have given $770,000 to the Welcome PAC since early last year, according to election filings. He says his contributions are helping the Super PAC with candidates in about a dozen seats around the country.
I do not necessarily expect that they will always vote with House Democratic leadership, because they are independent thinkers.
Over the years, the Nirenbergs have given millions of dollars to hospitals, early learning programs, and animal welfare groups in Southwest Washington. He's now supporting moderate Democrats because he's worried about how regular people will be hurt by cuts to social services in President Trump's big, beautiful bill.
What I'm doing politically aligns well with where I'm spending my time and our money as philanthropists, trying to focus on those people who are at the greatest risk of being left behind.
There are a few different ways to think about how this political strategy might play out, according to Jan Volkel. He's an assistant professor of public policy at Cornell University. His research focuses on political polarization.
Nowadays, voters dislike the other party much more than they did 40 years ago.
But at the same time, he says politicians have drifted farther to the extremes than most Americans have.
We find over and over again that voters support democratic principles, and they are exhausted of political polarization.
It's anybody's guess whether promoting bipartisanship in the midterms is a winning approach, but it's resonating with some voters in Southwest Washington. I'm Eric Newman reporting.
Now, Western Washington is full of greenery, but students at the University of Washington's Tacoma campus are helping add to that landscape with a mini forest downtown. Here's Northwest Public Broadcasting's Lauren Gallup.
It's pretty loud on the University of Washington's Tacoma campus. The light rail passes by cars on the streets, students head to class, and today there's another sound. People shoveling into the ground. About 30 volunteers are planting trees and other plants on this corner.
We're right here on the edge of our campus in a very urban downtown setting.
Michael Dorner is a UW Tacoma student and one of the people who made this happen. Dorner was in a class where he and two classmates came up with an idea. They wanted to make a green space on the campus.
In this very downtown urban setting, there's a lot of people around here that might get around fully without cars and don't really have a way to go out and go on a hike or see the forest.
They found an empty lot on the campus. Along with the help of two professors and a handful of community organizations, the students started planting a mini forest there. Livia Petzinger is the sustainability coordinator for the UW campus. She says this project is important to Tacoma.
We have a much lower urban tree canopy coverage, and that's definitely related to health equity.
According to the city of Tacoma, only about 20% of the city is covered by tree canopy. That's what you see when you stand below a tree and look up at the branches and leaves overhead. People in Tacoma are trying to increase the city's tree canopy cover.
Trees help prevent air pollution, they lead to better health outcomes, reduce stress for people who live in the area.
She's right. A 2016 study found that neighborhoods with more trees have residents with better overall health. The study found that people in these neighborhoods had lower rates of obesity. There were also lower rates of type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, and asthma. Petzinger says this mini forest will grow into a space where students can engage with and learn from nature.
The students at this campus are so hungry for outdoor spaces. They desperately want to be able to spend more time in nature.
The students are planting coniferous pines, shrubs, ferns, and ground cover. They're planting in a style called the Miyawaki method. Ruben Casas is one of the professors on the project. He says this style establishes a whole ecosystem.
It requires a lot of density with trees and their friends, basically.
The method originated in Japan. Instead of planting trees by themselves, other plants that normally grow with them in a forest go in the ground at the same time.
The inception of this was really, how can we create a space on campus that helps us think about other ways of growing our urban tree canopy so that some of these challenges that we're facing for a lack of trees can be met a lot sooner.
One of the reasons they're doing this type of planting is that it's meant to grow the trees faster and keep them healthy. Other cities in the U.S. have done this. In fact, at Western Washington University in Bellingham, students planted a mini forest on a piece of land that was overgrown by invasive species. Bo Jay is a graduate student at Western. He's now the co-director of LEAD, a student-run group that does restoration projects. Jay says students were reading about the Miyawaki method.
And they were like, yeah, we could totally do this in the Pacific Northwest.
Students planted trees, shrubs, and ferns on the site in 2023. The trees have grown quickly. When they were planted, they were a foot tall. Last year, when Jay visited the mini forest,
they were about as tall as me. I'm 5 foot.
This year,
these trees are double my size, which is absolutely insane.
At UW, they hope they'll be able to replicate that success. In about half a day, students put nearly 200 plants into the ground. I'm Lauren Gallup in Tacoma.
And finally, a story from Oregon that mixes beer and religious worship. There's only one place in the United States that houses a Benedictine brewery. OPB's Lisa Wood takes us on a visit with the monks who still brew beer in the centuries-old monastic tradition.
Nestled in the trees on the hill above the town of Mount Angel, Oregon, sits Mount Angel Abbey. It was founded in the Willamette Valley in 1882 by Benedictine monks from Switzerland. After a disastrous fire in 1892, they rebuilt on the hilltop. The Abbey is an expansive complex that houses a monastery, a college, a library, a museum, a guest house and retreat center, and the reason I'm here, they are the only monastery in the United States with a brewery that still brews in the centuries-old monastic tradition.
Benedictine monks have a really long history in brewing. After the fall of the Roman Empire, with the collapse of Western civilization, there was very little structure left. And the monks became the brewers of the day. Charlemagne used monasteries to kind of put fabric to his empire. They needed beer for themselves because they couldn't drink the water. So for hundreds of years, until the Renaissance, monks were really the commercial brewers of the day.
That's Father Martin. He's the head brewer and general manager of the Brewery and St. Michael Tap Room. He produces about 230 barrels of beer a year. I asked him how he came to live at Mount Angel.
I was a software engineer for 10 years. I was involved in my local parish, and people started suggesting I be a priest, or they thought I was the priest, and I couldn't get the idea out of my head. The bishop sent me to Mount Angel Seminary. That was my first exposure to monastic life, but it took a few years of discerning to really make that shift. I came in 1995, so it's been 30 years now.
He wasn't a brewer when he came to Mount Angel, but an offer from a neighboring employee changed everything.
I was barely even a beer drinker, but I started brewing because one of our employees knocked on my office door and said she and her husband had some home brewing equipment they were not going to use anymore. Would I be interested in brewing beer? And I couldn't why are you asking me this question? I couldn't fathom. So I thanked her, but no, I have no interest in brewing beer. But that dumb idea stuck in my head. I wrestled with this thought for 1 month, and I went back to her and said, do you still have that? I fell in love with the process, so I just kept reading, and my engineering background certainly helped, and talking to brewers. And that's where we learned how collegial this industry is. People are very willing to share.
He tells me how the rule of St. Benedict applies to work and craft and how the brewery fits into that.
You could say he permits the artisans of the monastery to pursue their arts, their crafts. But if it becomes a matter of pride, where the monk feels like he's bestowing something on the monastery, then he's no longer to practice that. This is really a spiritual life, not a business life, not an art life. The monk's number one pursuit is his own spiritual growth.
And what about when the monk is able to practice his craft without pride?
Say that you're heading in the right direction and you're producing things that people like and are helping the monastery, then St. Benedict lets it take those to market. What he wants to see is that monks price their goods a little bit less than everyone else. So you're not price gouging. There are people who think, well, monks made this, it's special, and they're willing to pay more for it. We're not 6th century Italy here. We want to work market price. That's the economic system we work in.
Father Martin brews beers that are true to the history of the monastic craft.
We gravitate towards Belgian styles. That's what people associate with monastic brewing because of the Belgian Trappists and their famous beers.
When it comes to sourcing ingredients, some come straight from the Abbey.
The hops are all local. In fact, some of them are grown on our land. The biggest ingredient in beer is, of course, water. It's like 95% water. That comes from our own well. I just have to filter it.
Other than the hum of patrons enjoying themselves, the tap room is quiet, and that's by design. There's no music, no TV, just a space for people to gather, socialize, and enjoy the fruits of Father Martin's work.
It's a special feeling when I can be back brewing a batch of beer and I hear the happy roar in the tap room. There's people here enjoying themselves, and I do hope that they're experiencing something unique in our Benedictine tap room.
But before anything can be served, Father Martin adds what he calls their secret ingredient. He blesses the tap room with a prayer and holy water every day.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the opening of the St. Michael tap room. We're going to do the blessing, so please join us.
And Father Martin has one hope for your experience with his beers.
What I really hope is that someone experiences the goodness of God in tasting a good beer.
And the message on Father Martin's beer bottles is pretty simple. Taste and believe. In Mount Angel, Oregon, I'm Lisa Wood.
Thanks for listening to Seattle Now. Our production team includes Caroline Chamberlain Gomez, Vaughn Jones, Brooklyn Jamerson Flowers, Andy Hurst, and Paige Browning. Greg Kramer does our theme music. Seattle Now and KUOW Public Radio are members of the NPR network. I'm Patricia Murphy. See you soon.